Hey everyone, this is Zephyr, and welcome to the Baileywiki channel, where we teach everyday DMs how to create truly amazing experiences for their players by combining art and technology. We also make modular systems and scenes that you can use without any setup, and our latest release for Foundry Virtual Tabletop is going to be the backdrop for today's video. Today, we're going to discuss a really great way to punch up your animations and special effects just that little bit more on your tokens. And that's going to be using the token variant art module by Aedif. TVA has a ton of applications, from completely swapping out artwork on the fly to adding entirely new graphical user interfaces. Today, we're going to focus on just one aspect of this amazing toolbox, and that's going to be using effects that are applied to a token to cause changes in that token's artwork, and also applying token magic effects. If you enjoyed this video and you want to learn more about TVA, then you can check out Aedif's page for the module in the description below. And of course, let us know if you want us to cover this further in additional videos where we can take a look at more features in small bites like this. With all that said, let's go ahead and dive in. To get started, I have two characters here. Angus, who is my barbarian, and our old friend Ventress, the rogue warlock. Both of these characters have some special effects that I want to push up just a notch. There's already some really great automations and animations and special effects that I have courtesy of Chris's premades and all the other modules that I'm running, but there's a few other features that I would like to have. Starting with Angus over here, part of his story is that he has this pink fluffy bathrobe that he wears when he's not in a fight, and then when he goes into a rage, he throws the bathrobe off like things have gotten serious. If I go ahead and activate his rage, I have this really great animation effect for going into the rage courtesy of Chris's premades and all of the automation there. I have this really cool purple lightning effect that makes it look like Angus is crackling with electricity, but he's still wearing his pink fluffy bathrobe. Now, I could go ahead and go through the process of really customizing the macro for rage and do a lot of manual setup to make it so that in addition to playing all the animations, it also transforms his token art, etc. But that can get pretty involved and can also be easy to make some mistakes on. However, with token variant art, it's incredibly easy to make changes like this, especially because this rage is considered an effect. If we open up Angus here and we go to his effects tab, we'll see that rage is currently on as a temporary effect. And this is where token variant art and its effects features come into play. So we're going to go into the mapping for effects on Angus, and there are two principal ways we can get there. Down here, when we have opened up the token mini HUD here, there is a series of two pictures on top of each other, and that's kind of the token variant art menu button. I can right click on it, and we'll see that there is the section for mappings, and that will bring up this window here. We can also shift left click on the assign status effects button to get the window there as well. Now, this is going to be Angus's local effect mapping piece here. So this is only going to affect Angus. It's not going to affect anyone else. There's also a button for opening up the global mappings, but we're not going to deal with that just yet. So here we have Angus, and I'm going to hit this plus button, and this gives me a new row. So first off, we have the description, and this is just going to be rage image. And then the expression is going to be what we're evaluating in order to apply everything that we're doing over here to the right. So there's a lot of different things you can do here. There are operators for checking health and other statuses, etc. For our purposes, we're only going to concern ourselves with effects. So again, we'll pop open Angus's sheet, and we have this temporary effect of rage. And this is the easiest way I found to do this. We are in our effects, and we go ahead and just edit this rage effect. And we're just going to copy the name here. And then we paste it in. And so this is going to be the expression that we evaluate. Again, we can get into different values, flags, conditions, etc. But here, we're just looking for named effects. And it's basically checking, okay, is there an effect on this character named rage? If yes, do everything over here to the right. Then our next column to the right is going to be priority. Basically, if multiple things are applying, which one takes precedence? If there's multiple things telling us to change the image, which one are we going to pick first? Higher number is higher priority, so it's going to be the thing that applies at the end of it all. Next, we have image, which is normally this blank square, and you can assign whatever image you like here. If you are using token variant art to source a bunch of other variant artworks, you can find it in this kind of select token art menu, or you can use the file picker to come through and actually select your assets. So I'm going to go in here and pick out a token I have for Angus here. And then I have all of this set up over here, and we'll go through this in a little bit more detail. But first, we'll go ahead and save. And we'll notice that the image has changed now because we are in a rage. And I can actually go ahead and end the rage, and it will revert back. So already super easy. It took us only a few seconds to actually set up this interface right here. And we can do even more with it. Before we get into kind of the expanded implications here, a quick rundown of the rest of this menu. Here we have this config section, and this is going to give us a few different powerful options. This may look a little familiar to you if you have used mass edit. These are things that you can change about the token when the condition is true. We'll explore that a little bit later on. There's also this edit button that just is a JSON of anything that we are changing with the token config there. And then we have this section for special scripts and macros and token magic effects presets that we can apply when we are using this config here. And we'll explore that in a moment. Next, we have this overlay option, which is going to give us an overlay when the condition is true. And we're not going to cover this today. However, you can see if I go into a rage and I have the overlay set to true, then I have this image here. You can do a lot of other things with the overlay, and there are a lot of configurations here. But for the purposes of this video, we're going to stick to the image and config sections. Next, we also have this always on and disable. So if I go ahead and turn off our rage, then I select always on and save, I'm going to revert. And if I disable this and save, then if we go into the rage, we're not actually going to change the image. Finally, we have the group. There is a dropdown here if you have multiple groups already prepared, but here I can just say something like rage. And it will generate this new group that I can expand and contract, so it's easy to look at a lot of things. This is helpful for if I'm making several different pieces. And these also act as kind of filters, so once you start typing, then you'll actually get the other menus to pop up. And you can enable and disable things as an entire group using these sections and hide them away. So that's kind of the basics right there. Now let's go ahead and explore another application using Ventress over here. For Ventress, I like the spell Armor of Agathys quite a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and cast it, and once again we're going to get really nice effects courtesy of Chris's Premades, JB2A, automated animations, all of our great automation suites. But I want a little something extra. We have this cool bubble around him and this field that's going on, but I would like to have kind of this look like he has frost on top of him. And we can do that using token magic effects. Using token variant art, we can actually go ahead and apply those token magic effects. So I'll right click on Ventress to open up this little mini HUD here, and then right click to pull open the extra settings and open up those mappings. We're going to add a new one, and it's going to be Armor of Agathys. And again, to make sure we get the correct expression, we have the effect that we want to customize for on that Armor of Agathys, and we're just going to copy its name and paste it into the expression. If you already know the exact spelling and formatting of the condition or effect, then you can go ahead and just type it in. You don't have to copy and paste it. This is just very foolproof. And while we're here, I'm also going to go ahead and give this a name and call it spells. So we've got the group of spells enabled, so we can now group other things like this here. I'll go ahead and save. And then I'm not going to change his image. Instead, I'm going to go into this config section. If I hit the play button over here, this is all of those scripts we discussed earlier. And I'm interested in this token magic effects. And there are all kinds of token magic effects that already come preloaded whenever you install the module. So I'm going to look here for a ice one, like this pure ice aura, and hit apply. You'll know that that has saved in there because you'll have this kind of gold color. And if you hit the edit token configuration button, you can see the little JSON here. You can additionally paste in a JSON if you have something else already prepared. If we hit this play button and we want to remove the aura, if we just hit apply and close, we'll notice that it's not showing up here. If you want to get rid of the effect entirely, you'll have to hit this remove button. But I'll go ahead and add that back, and then we will take a look. And if we save, we'll notice that nothing happens immediately. With token magic effects properties, we need to, again, just make sure that we've saved, make sure that it's everything in the JSON there, and then we're actually going to turn off the effect that we had previously. And then we'll just turn it back on, and that's how we'll test it. For token magic effects, we do need to reapply for them to come on because these are going to be toggles on and off. And we'll see now that we have this really cool frost aura around Ventress, and it's all good to go, and it was super easy. So that covers changing artwork and applying token magic effects filters that have come as a part of our preset library and only to individual tokens. But what if we wanted to do a global effect, and if the token magic effects filter that we wanted to apply was not something that was already in the preset library? Well, let's take a look at this situation here. So Angus and Ventress have all but defeated this cultist, and when he gets to 0 health, then let's say we want there to be some special effect whenever we mark him as dead. It looks kind of obtrusive to have this guy in full image and everything and full attire appearing to still be ready to go. So let's go ahead and add something else to that to make it really clear when something has been defeated. To do this, we're going to open up our global menu, and there's a few ways we can do that. We can, again, open up the individual mapping and use that to open the global config. We can also go into our game settings and configure settings, and then within the token variant art settings, if we just click on settings, we can then go into effects, and right here we have the global mappings to configure, and we can get to it that way. And then finally, we can hit Shift-G by default to open up our global mappings. So we're going to go ahead and add a new one in here, which is going to be dead. And we're going to use the same expression, dead. Again, if we wanted to grab that, we could open up the character sheet for the cultist, check its effect tabs, and then copy and paste the name. Then we're going to go and name this something like health state or something like that. Save, and if we go into this play button for scripts and we look for something like dead, death, or blood, or wound, then we don't find anything really compelling in the initial options here. Now, you'll notice that we have all of these BW presets here, and this is from the Baileywiki nuts and bolts module. And that module will bring in all of our different token magic effects presets into your TMFX preset library so that you can reference them with tools like this and mass edit. If you want to add your own, then it's pretty simple to create a macro for that. First, we need to decide on the filter that we want to apply when something is dead. So if I select this cultist, I've already gone through the token magic effects presets library compendium to take a look at some of the examples here, and I've settled on this dead splash effect here. It adds this cool like blood pool coloration kind of technique that makes it pretty clear that this person is no longer in the fight. So the easiest way to create the macro that turns this into a preset is to go ahead and make a copy of it. And we'll see that I've already made one version of that. Now I'm going to open up this copy, and I'll also open up the original. So there's a few things that we need to change here. First off, we have this params section, and params is what defines the filter. This is what you would play around with if you were creating your own custom filter. You're adding these different types and filling in this different data. The only important thing that we need to change here is this filter ID. It's generally just good practice to make sure that your filter ID is something unique. So you'll see that we've already named it in this version the My Dead splash. You could also add something else to it to just make it distinctive. You want to make sure that if you are removing individual filters that you can target just this one, and you can also make sure that if you're overriding something that's just called My Splash, that it's not going to replace this if you don't want it to be replaced. So it's just good practice to make sure this filter ID is also unique. Then down here at the bottom, we can get rid of this await. And instead of this token magic add update filters unselected, we're going to instead change that to add preset. Then inside of our parentheses, we don't need to get rid of our parameters. Instead, we'll put a comma in front of it, and then we will open some quotation marks, and we're going to put in the name that we want this to appear as in our list. I recommend putting some kind of prefix in front of it. As you saw earlier, we had the BW in brackets prefix before all of the Baileywiki TMFX presets. Since I'm Zephyr, and also I find it kind of convenient if it's just the last thing in the line all grouped together, I use Z. So I'm going to call this Z Dead Splash. And then we have this all configured here. So really easy. We're just changing kind of the function that we're calling here, and we're just making sure that we have some good identifying information so that we don't have it overlaid or anything like that. The name up here at the top does not really matter. I put this add preset on my original version here to make sure that it was clear that this was the add preset version as opposed to actually applying the effects. So you're done, you can go ahead and save the macro. And just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to make sure I execute our copy here. And so it says the effects has successfully been added to the preset library. So now we'll go ahead and open up that menu we had again with Shift G. And so we've got our dead here. And if we go and configure this, start searching for Z, we'll see that Z Dead Splash now appears. If we hit apply, we can save and close. And then now if we mark this person as dead, again, this is token magic effects filter, so we have to reapply this condition, and we get this cool blood splatter effect. And this will apply to everything, not just our cultists. Of course, we marked Angus dead, so he looks a little strange and doesn't have vision at the moment, but you can add that in. Returning to our global menu, just one other thing to note here is we have an additional column here for configure applicable actors. So if we click on this, then it's going to source whatever your system is. In this case, we're looking at D&D 5e. And so we have player character, non-player character, vehicle, and group types. And these are all of the different types of actors defined within the 5e system. You can use this to restrict some of these effects in global mappings to only certain types of actors and tokens. So for example, if I wanted this dead effect to only work on NPCs, I can deselect everything else and then save and close. And again, we'll be able to toggle the dead on and off here. But then when we mark Angus as dead, then he does not get that filter. So far, we've just been showing off how easy and effective the token variant art module is at changing artwork and everything in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. But I want to hop into a map that may be familiar to you if you watched our DC 20 combat video recently. Here we had a monk named Creighton who has a variety of different stances, and this is kind of Creighton in an Angus Mackenzie costume. So if we open up his sheet, he has two different stances, this bear stance and gazelle stance. This is him kind of just chilling normally. If I activate his bear stance, we can see he goes into one art. And if I activate his gazelle stance, he goes into another. If I go ahead and open up his mappings, we can see I've defined this bear stance and gazelle stance. The last little bit of config interest that I want to show off for today is a pretty simple one. You'll notice that if I go into bear stance, this artwork looks a little small. I did kind of a different process when I made this artwork versus my friend who originally took his relaxed portrait. So if I go into this config section, again, this may be familiar if you've used Mass Edit, but you can tweak some different things, and this is going to apply just one aspect whenever we are in these different modes here. So I'm gonna bump up the scale a little bit to hopefully have it pretty close. And when I save it, we'll see that he gets larger, and now this feels like a little more proportional to how big he is normally. And you could further adjust that, etc. You can change all kinds of things here beyond just the scale. One of the obvious applications might be changing the dynamic token ring that Foundry provides so that you can have different color codings for different situations. Or you can also have things like a light if whatever ability they're using emits a light and you don't have a bunch of automation for it. You can add things like adding in this 5 feet of bright light, and then also maybe making it a specific color. And again, you can verify these by clicking on the little pencil and paper icon here. And then when we save it and we go into our stance, we get this cool light effect. So you could do a whole lot of things with just this little config, and we haven't even scratched the surface of the capabilities with expressions and overlays and triggers, etc. Finally, the last thing to point out here is you'll notice that in DC20, I have this little icon right here from the effect. There are also icons for those effects in 5e, etc., but I had them turned off with a setting, and you can do the same by opening up your game settings and going to configure settings for token variant art. And we'll pop open the configure settings menu and we'll go to the effects tab. Same place you would go to if you wanted to get to the global mappings here. There's a whole lot of options here, but to change how the token effect icons work, it's all down here in this effect icons section. As a brief overview, you can have this display token effect icons on hover, which is what I prefer. You can also disable all effect icons, which is going to make them just not appear at all on the token or in the tracker. You can also then disable some of the different effects or also disable them with specific mappings. Then you have this additional restricted effects, and this is where a lot of things that aren't conditions, for example, would go, where you can put in things like, say, rage or this particular stance, then it's not going to have the icon. I find the icons on hover only is the best option for me. So if I go ahead and save those changes, we'll notice now that I only see that bear stance icon on Angus when I hover over him. And that's going to conclude this tutorial on using token variant art to change up your token images and apply token magic effects, whether they are built-in presets or custom ones, on the fly in Foundry. We think this is an incredible companion to either a ton of automation and animation modules, as we showcased earlier, or a more bare bones suite where you can rely on TVA to do even more of the heavy lifting. It's a great option for adding just that little extra bit of pizzazz and style to your tokens when you're playing a game in Foundry. But let us know what you think in the comments. Are you going to be picking up TVA after this video, or have you already been using it? Either way, if there's more topics on token variant art that you think we should discuss, definitely let us know about that in the comments as well, and we'll be happy to do additional videos exploring all of the different features of TVA. This has been Zephyr with the Baileywiki channel. If you enjoyed this video, then subscribe to keep up with all of our latest content, and consider becoming a patron. Not only do you support the channel, but you also gain access to all of the modular systems and scenes that we've made, including the ones that you've seen showcased in this video. Once again, this has been Zephyr. Thank you so much for watching, happy gaming, and have a good one.